This morning we have two gospel lessons. The first comes from the book of Luke, chapter 1, verses 46 through 55. That can be found in the Pew Bible on page 57. If you're able, please stand and join me while I read the gospel. And Mary said, "Blessed are you among women. My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God, my Savior. For he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent rich away empty. He has helped his servants Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever." The second reading is from the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verses 2 through 11. When John heard in prison what the Messiah was doing, he sent word by his disciples and said to him, "Are you the one who is to come, or are we to wait for another?" Jesus answered them, "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk, and the lepers are cleansed. The deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." As they went away, Jesus began to speak to the crowds about John. "What did you go out into the wilderness to look at? A reed shaken by the wind. What then did you go out to see? Someone dressed in soft robes? Look, those who wear soft robes are in royal palaces. What then did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I tell you, and more than a prophet. This is the one whom it is written, 'See, I am sending my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you.' Truly I tell you, among those born of women, no one has risen greater than John the Baptist, yet the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. You know, we've been talking over these past few weeks about what gift we can give to Jesus for his birthday. And actually, we've been talking about what gifts we can give, because as I reminded you a few weeks ago, we made a commitment, those of us who have chosen to live out our discipleship here at Grace Church. We have made a commitment to give 5 specific gifts to God on a daily basis. The first week, the first Sunday in Advent, we talked about the gift of our presence. How important it is for us to be here, not just for ourselves, but even more so for others. I can't tell you how many times I've looked out and I've seen people here who haven't been here for a while, and how it makes me feel good to see you. And sometimes there are Sundays when I just need to see certain people. And I think you know how I feel, because I think you all have felt the same from time to time. Last week we talked about giving the gift of our finances, our resources. This is always one of those Sundays that's a little bit touchy, because, to be quite honest, we don't like to talk about money. In fact, it's interesting to note that quite often when you do talk about money, you hear someone say, "Oh, but there are other gifts that we can give," which is true. But rarely when you talk about, no, I would say never have I ever heard it, that when you talk about the other gifts, someone puts up their hand and says, "Oh, but we could give our money." We don't like talking about it, folks. It makes us uncomfortable. But it's one of the gifts that we have committed to giving. Today we're going to talk about the gift of service, of doing for others. You know, you and I all have heard people who have talked a lot, haven't we? We've heard people who have answers to everything, people that can just talk up a storm. But we also know that from time to time, those people that talk up a storm, when you watch them live, you're thinking, are they really who they claim to be? Sometimes we see people and we hear people, but when we watch them live, it's something totally different. And it causes us to step back and look and ponder, is it really that important to them? We've just come through a political campaign where we heard all kinds of promises from both sides. But now people are watching to see, are they going to follow through on the promise? Are they going to keep their word? Some of us are hoping they don't. Some of us are hoping they will. But folks, the reality is, we don't get turned on so much by people who talk the talk. We connect more and more with people who walk the walk. People who do. People who support. People who put their faith into action. I found it interesting that when John sent his messengers to Jesus and said, "Are you really the Messiah, or should we look for another one?" Jesus could have very easily said, "Tell John, yes, I am the Messiah. He needs to believe because God has sent me." And everyone would have said, "Wow, that's really great." But what did Jesus do instead? He said, "Go back and tell John what you see. Go back and tell John what you've experienced." Then he went on to talk about some of the things that are happening. But what he is saying is, don't just take my word for it. Tell him what you have seen, what you have witnessed, what you have experienced. In other words, Jesus is saying, look to the ministries that are happening in my name. And that's the evidence John's looking for. Mary, when she talks about this child in her womb, talks about what God is going to do through him. Her words are words of action, of God acting on behalf of the lowly. You see, folks, it's not so much what we say that counts. It's what we do. It's how we live out this faith. Now, I could stand up here and I could tell you things that we do, but I don't think that really is as powerful as hearing you tell me. So I'm going to ask you, and you can blurt it out and I'll repeat it so we all can hear. What are some of the ministries that we can do here at Grace Church to serve others? The Wednesday night suppers. A great opportunity to come out and interact with members of the community. A great opportunity to come out and interact with one another. There's a group of people that come out regularly on Wednesday night, not just to eat, but to serve. And we've gotten connected to one another. Nothing makes me feel better that when I go into that room on Wednesday night and I start walking, the people are saying, "Hi, Rev, how you doing?" They know who I am. That's important, folks, that we connect with one another, that we care for one another, that we serve one another. What's another ministry that we can do here at Grace Church? VIM, Volunteers in Mission. People give up 5 to 6 days of their week. We leave here after the 9:30 service on Sunday morning. We drive all day. We get to our place Sunday evening, and Monday morning we're out working. And we work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all day each day, even in the rain sometimes. And Friday we finish up Friday morning and then come home. You know, most of these places where you go, they have a program that they want you to live by, which is you work Monday, Tuesday, take a day off Wednesday to check out the community, and then work all day Thursday, all day Friday. We chose instead to work through, to just keep working. And it's amazing what you can accomplish. I know one year when we were in North Carolina, we did 9 wheelchair ramps, I believe, in the course of 4.5 days. But it's also important because you connect with people. You get to know the people that you're working with. You get to know the people that you're working for. A lot of relationships have been established during that time. I can remember when we were in New York, there was a relationship that some of our members established, and they kept sharing letters back and forth over the coming years, connecting with one another. It's another way that we can serve. And the other ways we can serve here at Grace Church. Bible school, Vacation Bible School. For a week, it's interesting around here. It's noisy around here. But do you realize that as many as 60 to 70% of the children that come to Bible school are not connected with Grace Church? And yet we're sharing the gospel message. We're letting them hear the stories of Jesus. For some of them, it might be the only chance to hear this message. And we do it with a sense of excitement. And I know that come Friday, the teachers are very happy that the long week is now past. But I also know that sometimes the following week, the children are very sad because they want to come back for more. Is there another way that we can serve? Janet, the sharing table, Martha's Meal, programs like that where we go out of our facilities but we go somewhere else. Martha's Meal, we go every 6 weeks over to Grove Presbyterian on the other side of the tracks, you could literally say. It's in a different section of Aberdeen, and twice a year, I think it is, sometimes 3, we go to the sharing table, which is down the road in the Edgewood community, I think. A chance to share and to give, and again to connect with others. Any other ministries? The food pantry, yes. Coming in here on Wednesday around 4:30, getting the groceries bagged up, and being there. We're always looking for volunteers to help, to give out the food as people come in. But also, we can help support the food pantry by simply bringing in what's put in the bulletin each week. Ways that we can be in ministry and serve in the name of Jesus Christ. Any other ministries? Yes, Joan. Helping the people in need, the gifts that we've had a chance to give out, but also reaching out at other times. I know one of the things that we did a few years ago was we connected with, through the blanket drive, we connected with Church World Service. And we did so again last year when we were looking at starting up a new homeless shelter. And we got 300 blankets from them. We still have a lot of those blankets, but a lot of them have been used. And we give those blankets out. It's another way to help. Last year on Christmas Eve, we took up a special offering to buy cots for the new homeless shelter. Well, we have a rotating shelter this year, and we are in the process of getting more cots so that more people can be housed during very cold and bad weather during these winter months. Other ways that we can serve. Anyone else? Worship, coming here on Sunday morning, being a part of the worship team, which means joining the choir, playing in the bell choir, joining the praise team, ways that we can serve, that we can do this ministry of Jesus Christ and not just talk about it. Any other ways? The prayer chain, going and lifting up people in prayer. Janet will be glad to have you connect with her and put you on the list. I know now when we do the prayer chain, Janet was talking about this some time ago. She mentions it a lot in our member class. It used to be that prayer chain was handwritten and mailed out. Now we use email, but there are still a couple of members, I guess, that prayer chain is mailed to. And they still pray. I remember Marion Thacker? Marion told me many a time, she said, I would get up every morning, the first thing I'd do was I would look at the prayer chain and I'd lift up everybody on that prayer chain. Her children said sometimes it took Mom an hour and a half to lift up all the people she had listed on her prayer list. But she did it faithfully every morning and every evening. It's another way that we can be in ministry. I heard something else. Did someone else? The visitation. Yeah, visiting people. Simply going to people who are hurting, who are struggling. Letting them know that we care about them. Supporting them. Letting them know they're loved, even as they go through times of struggle. Janet, you had your hand up? Being willing to serve on committees and in leadership positions. Reaching out to others, but also serving the church. I know we're always looking for people who are willing to serve. And if you're interested in serving on a committee, let me know. Let Dennis know. Let Ann know. Let some of the other leaders of the church know, because we would love to get you connected. You know, one of the things that I'm proud of here at Grace Church, and I've seen this happen over the years, is that when somebody has an idea, somebody has a ministry, we don't say, well, you know, let's establish a committee so we can study to see whether that's going to work or not in our church. You know what we say? Go for it. When Ed Dance said, I'd like to have a Saturday evening meeting at this church for AA, we said go for it. We checked with the trustees, the building was available. We said go for it. Ed had 2 or 3 people show up that night, but I know there have been some nights since then that he's had 20, 25, 30 people show up. We now have an Al-Anon group that has grown out of that. We also have another group that meets, an AA group that meets on Wednesday evenings. You see, there are opportunities to serve. One of the things we haven't talked about, how about Sunday school? My golly, we're looking for teachers who want to tell the good news of Jesus Christ. And you know, I need to tell you, because it's true not just with Sunday school, but it's also true with the mentoring program, which is another way we can serve. Children like to connect with people who are willing to live the faith, who can be authentic. I like connecting with people who are willing to live the faith and can be authentic. It means so much more. I've seen relationships built through programs like Sunday school or the mentoring process. I remember when I was in Perry Hall, there was a woman who was a mentor. She had a young girl who served as an acolyte on Sunday mornings, who, when she was going through confirmation, worked with this woman. About 5 or 6 years later, this woman was about to celebrate her 50th wedding anniversary. She and her husband wanted to have a special service. She went to that young girl, who was now a young adult, who was in the mentoring, who was the confirmand she was mentoring. And she said, I'd like you to serve as the acolyte at my service for my husband and I for our 50th wedding anniversary. That young girl was so excited. They had established a relationship, a connection. Think about it. How many of you remember a Sunday school teacher when you were young that really touched you? Anyone? I know I do. Those teachers taught us the faith. And it's not just the teacher that taught us or the lesson we learned. A lot of times it's the relationship that we developed that make that all possible. You see, folks, serving is about connecting. It's about developing a relationship with others. It's about doing, and that doing that we do touches lives. I've shared it the other 2 services. Last night, the Clips decided it was time to watch White Christmas. I love that movie. So we sat down and we watched White Christmas. Now, I am going to assume most of you know the story. In fact, I hope you all do, because I'm not going to try to explain it, because I have it the first two services and I don't do it justice. But you know, at the end of the movie, preachers think the same way all the time, I'm sorry. At the end of the movie, the many members of the battalion that served under General Waverly come back. They come to what was the name of the hotel? Columbia Inn, I think it was, in Pine Tree, Vermont. But they come there because General Waverly is going through a rough time. He doesn't feel wanted. He doesn't feel needed. He doesn't feel important anymore. And these people gave up their Christmas Eve in this movie so that they could tell him, you are someone special in our lives. I used to think that the climax of that movie was when the tree came back and you saw it snowing and everyone sang White Christmas. Last night when I watched it, maybe because of what I was going to do today, something else spoke to me. People were willing to give up their Christmas Eve at home so that they could go tell somebody they loved him. That's what service is all about. It's about doing for others. It's about touching others' lives. It's what we're called to do. It's not an option. So one thing we need to remember about all these gifts, they're not optional. We can't pick 1, 3, and 5, but 2 and 4 we don't do. They're all expected of us. The ministry of serving is something that we can do to touch lives each day. Amen.